So this is gonna be a post-incident analysis of the Park Street fire that we had on December 23rd. About 11:30 at night. And incident occurred, two-story, looks like balloon frame constructed home. There is your location, for those of you who aren't there. It is well torched at this point. These are the initial responding units. So when I'm gonna do this, I'm just gonna run through each unit and, with that, I'm gonna have Mike go ahead, and I believe you were first on scene, so give us what your thoughts were on the way there. And
when I got in the BC Brig, PD was already talking, that they were en route to it, and by the time I got out of the parking lot, they were on scene and said, yeah, it's ripping. So I knew we had a fire. Initially came in, I can't remember the exact address, but it was 2 or 3 houses down on the left, and it came in as like some sort of insurance agency. So I was looking at hydrants on the way down, knew where I wanted to, I knew we had a good hydrant in that block, so I arrived on scene and had a 2-story, lots of fire coming out of the delta side and the alpha side of the structure, lapping up into the 2nd-story window. So my main concern originally was the exposure on the delta side. So I spotted past that just in front of the next hydrant on the block and got out first engine. So I gave them orders to pull a line to the front door. As I was getting out, the one thing I didn't do was a 360. I seen 3 sides of the building on my drive up. Knew I had an exposure problem on both the Bravo and the Delta side. So my concern was just to try to get the fire knocked down as much as we could with what we had coming. So I got out, got the doors open on the BC rig, looked at it and said, that needs a lot more water than a hose or hand line. So that's when I called Jay and said, you guys got a hydrant, why don't we go ahead and hit it with the deck gun. So, and they got up, got a hydrant and started flowing water after that. So
we'll okay there and then have Jay pick up because you were the first in engine.
Yeah, so we're coming in, had Mackenzie as AIC engineer. I have Hayden in the back, and along with Maddie, one of our volunteer ride-alongs. So when we arrived on scene, I saw that Mike was there, but on the way over, we were kind of game planning our hydrants. We had one at the corner, one just past the house. Didn't pay attention to that one that's further down the road. But so I was talking with her, and I like kind of thinking of like different things we could do when we're getting on scene. Deuce and a half and engine 3/4 were our 2 main thoughts that we're going to use. So when Mike told us to do the master stream, we had our hydrant already picked out, and he actually we were thinking down the road as well, so we didn't know it was that one house on the right. So we kind of had to change our plan a little bit when we got on there. Took that hydrant at the northwest corner of Park and Vine, and then laid in. So Hayden jumped up top, grabbed the master stream. I actually pulled the hydrant or took the hydrant, and we had. Since Maddie was new, I didn't want her to have to do anything like that. So I just had her assist Hayden, and then Mackenzie got water on it really quick. So by the time I had the hydrant all hooked up, ready to go, she was just connecting the orange to her intake. So we ended up going with a full section off the back instead of the pony section, just because rather get there than not. So. But after they made that initial knockdown, our next order was to pull across the front door and entry. So I want to say agent. No, I think it was Dan.
So Medic 34. Anybody here on Medic 34?
it was Crumley and
Crumley was on the rescue.
that's right. He was on the rescue. It was Top and Wand.
Okay, so ones I don't recall. How about engine 31? That's me. All right, Brad, what do you got?
So, we got up for the fire.
Yourself, were you ended up? Just stand to the side.
We ended up somewhere.
You're just behind me.
Also, we ended up
Yeah.
Anyway, so when we first got started, we had a little bit of a delay in the very beginning, had to use the bathroom, and then I realized I didn't set my tags on the engine in the morning like I was supposed to. So I had to run back to the medic unit, grab my tags. That slowed us down just a tiny bit. We jumped in, took off, started heading to the fire. On our way to the fire, I was looking at the MDT mapping, and I was trying to figure out which hydrant engine 34 was gonna take. And I got confused. I thought they were taking a hydrant that was further up, and I didn't want to drive right through the middle of the scene. So we ended up turning right on Sherman, and I think left on Williams, and we went up, and we actually went up an extra block, and then took, I think it was Isabella, and then we took the hydrant there, and then we came back down. And then when I got there, after we got the hydrant hooked up and engine 31 went up to the scene, I ran up, got my tags, gave them to Maynard, and I think he told me to join in with the crew that was pulling the 2.5 inch off of engine 31. And so I joined those guys, and they became my crew, and that was Hayden Davis and the Maddie girl. And so from that point on, that was my crew. And we started out on the Alpha side, or on the Bravo side of the building, kind of spraying into the top floor. And then when they transitioned to go back inside, we were back up. And so we just went in as backup, and we just kept coming out and going back in for different assignments.
Well, looking at your time, you guys' time isn't really 23:50, is it? Is that right? You got there 3:15?
No, there was a bunch.
The times were also.
The times are all jacked up. on
Okay, I
that
was
thing.
gonna say, holy smokes.
Yeah.
I was at air.
No, we
I can't remember if you were already there when I got there or not.
They were.
Were they?
They had already laid in by the time.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. So you guys were there. That doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I was at airport.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so back to, you were told to make entry.
Yeah, so, I think I went in here with, Dan, because he, finished up a medic 30 shift. He was just leaving. The call came through, so he took the rescue in, since we were full, so they're right behind us. I got together with him. We made entry. It was, difficult to see conditions. We were able to only make it about 5 feet in the door. Not a lot of fire activity on the first floor, so, we could see it blowing out the second story. So we tried to, we had to pull out and finish up some fire attack on the Charlie Center. So that's when I communicated with Mike, then that's when you had a crew go back there for that fire lead.
Was that Juan and Chop?
Probably.
They were out there when I got
Yeah.
arrived there.
Yeah. Cause I think Casey, I give somebody the exposure on that side. So it had to have been Casey, I'm trying to remember, but the Charlie Delta exposure, that was my main concern after they had knocked the fire or initial fire arrival. That was my biggest concern, was that exposure. So when they got there, I said, hey, can you get an exposure line between those two buildings? And they'd already knocked it down by then, but that was my fault. I did not do my 360. And so I didn't know what I had along the back of the house. And when you got there, I should have had you do my 360.
Oh, you
Or
did
do
do
it.
it.
You did do one, but I didn't ask you to do one. So I didn't get to see what I had back there. That was kind of one of my things that I did not do properly, but, like I said, I seen 3 sides of it, knew what we had, but my biggest concern was that Charlie Delta exposure when I first arrived. So I don't know if they took a 2.5 or 1.75 down there.
Inch.
1.75, so. But I upgraded it after I got out, I upgraded to a second alarm before they even had water on it. Because that was my biggest concern, is we were gonna catch that exposure house. So, and it ended up needing all those people with all this construction of that house. So it worked out great.
Yeah, so you threw your second alarm out.
I think it was 17 minutes
Yeah.
before they toned.
Yeah, 23:35. So you hit your second alarm right quick. But then your second alarm unit, 23:35 wasn't, I was 13. I guess they got toned up too far behind. It was only 4 minutes.
But look at their route time though. So I don't think I guess it's 30. So yeah.
Yeah.
But after that,
Everybody after
everybody
that
else
though
was after that, yeah.
way behind.
yeah.
Was that
I think 10 and 13 was that the second alarm or was that the move? It was already.
That was the
Originally
move up,
move up.
that's why, yeah, that's exactly why that's what it is. So truck 11 would have been second.
Yeah, you didn't get them until almost.
Well, Joe had made it to me and came up and said they hadn't even started ringing down your second alarm yet. And so he came all the way from his house.
Yeah, so I got on scene. I think I was the next in on scene. You assigned me safety. And so whenever I'm safety, I just, as soon as I get on scene, I try to do another 360 just to double check and see what you got. On the 360, I killed your gas for you. And you still had both crews working exterior, if I remember right. I walked around back, they were trying to shoot through a window, and I just had them pull around to the Charlie side. There's a nice big open slider on the back side, so they weren't happening to try to hold that thing up. And there's a picture of Casey spraying in the window there during that. But and then when I walked back out front, I think that's when you said, "Are we good to send them in?"
Yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, the fire was knocked down. It's an old house, and things gonna stand. So, anyways, then I think I just made contact with you again, and when I'm safety, what I tend to do is I just monitor it, especially as crews are going upstairs, and I know we got fire up. I like to watch and make sure people are protecting the lines below. So that's why I want to make sure Casey got that knocked down on the bottom floor, so you guys aren't going upstairs and you don't have fire knocked down on the first floor before they're heading up. So you had knockdown, looks like at.
It was soon after we went in that.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Second time, we went up the stairs, because all of it, there was nothing in the Charlie side, because it was like, how it's set up, you have a room on the Charlie side, a hallway at the staircase, straight down the middle, a room on the Delta side, and then a room on the Alpha side, and all the fire was in that room on the Alpha side. So basically, Dan poked his head in there, knocked out the rest of the fire. We did a quick primary on the second floor, and I think at that point, more crews started coming up to do
Yeah.
some additional mop up.
Yeah, because you guys were in there quite a while before, because Bob and Bert showed up, so there was no suppression there. But until the second alarm guys, you guys were three bottles in
Yeah, I think so.
before the second alarm assignments got on scene, so. Yeah, did a lot of that by yourself.
And then most of it after that was focusing on making access to the attic. It was like a quarter height attic. There wasn't much space up there, and there was limited access, and the rooms, the ceilings were probably 8 feet,
Yeah, they were.
and it was all 3-tab. So we had to get like chainsaws and cut holes to make access. But the roof line was very strange. We had to make multiple access points to get to all the areas to check into. So it was kind of all over the place up there, just in like little pockets. So
The initial dispatch, I did not read all of the notes, so I missed the people yelling for help portion of it, because I was looking at my map. After I went route, I went to my map and was watching my map. And then Kenny came up and asked me if I'd done a primary search yet, and I was a ways into it. So I completely missed those notes. But when I got on scene, PD was there, and apparently the guy that kicked or went inside, or the biker guy. And I said, "Is anybody in the house?" They said we couldn't find anybody in the house. So they told me, or they didn't see them in the house. So I don't know where those people screaming and yelling for help came from. If they were just neighbors, I'm not sure exactly what it was. So I kind of didn't prioritize that like I should have, because I asked the bystanders and they said there was nobody in there that they knew of. And I didn't know who the person was. I just took their word for it, and it's kind of, I waited too long to do a primary search on it.
well, we were communicating with cruises there, like as Dan and I went out, we're like, hey, we didn't get all the primary done yet.
Yeah.
And then it was just not done.
Yeah, I got lost. So,
Yeah, I think you had the final primary all clear at 00:23:31. So pretty late in the game.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
late.
that's almost an hour.
yeah, I was late.
And so, yeah, that's one thing that I think just departmentally we need to work on, is making that a priority and getting that done faster. It sounds like you were thinking about it, and you said that you did a primary with that initial. You said you went in
Yeah,
fire
on
attack
the second floor.
on the second floor.
Yeah, 'cause
That just
we
needs
got
to
that
get
knocked
communicated in over the radio. Because then we ended up, I think you ended up sending Albany or somebody else in later on.
Yeah, yes, I did have Albany do it.
Yeah.
So,
And so it was done earlier. It just wasn't communicated. anyway, just moving forward, we just need to make that a big priority because I know the whole thing is life safety.
Yeah.
I went with McKinsey to give us her rendition of the first engineering part.
Well, with talking with her, she said, using the master stream never ran out of water, so she got connected fast enough to where she didn't have to run out. And she said it went relatively well, except, one of the valves on the engine's kind of the deluge discharge is hard to shut, so she was having trouble with that, but people come help her out, show her different techniques, but yeah. Felt pretty good about it.
All right, and then ultimately, you got knocked down on the inside, and then you end up pulling all units out, and that's when we used truck 11. And so they used their piercing, or not piercing on, but their smoothbore nozzle. I think it was the smallest tip on there, and they tried knocking out because just on this picture over here, so you can see it. You ran into this, where it's just burning right up in this, but like Jay was saying, that attic space, there was just like,
Yeah.
it's right about here. And so you can see that's him standing in there. And then all the way up here is about where that you have to cut with the chainsaw. So it wasn't like a true, like you'd look at this and think that it would have knee walls here and then have the cock loft about here at a normal height, but they ripped that out and then they raised the ceilings in this thing. So anyways, that presented a lot of issues. So then that's when Mike decided to do that with the ladder truck. And we got a picture here of them actually doing that. So they ended up just blasting into there, and it did knock that down pretty well at that point. What's a concern we would have with doing this?
Lots of water.
Lots of water. And that was my concern, is then when you re-engaged and went back inside. So you've got a house that was fully developed, and we're sending crews back, and after we pumped for, I mean, the smallest tip puts out 500 gallons per minute, right? And they sprayed it in there for at least 5 minutes. So now you've got all that water weight, and granted it's an old home, but still it's a lot of, I mean, something to think about. I tried to make a point, Randy Boyer with Sio's group, they ended up going back in, and then Jay's group will go back in, just make sure you're listening to the building when you're in there. If you're gonna send back in after we float a bunch of water, especially a building that's already structurally damaged from fire, because then we have potential. I mean, they're low, but there's potential for shifting or, you know, the floor to give way.
I think a lot of that water probably went out that backside.
And then went down the stairs. There was no standing water.
It wasn't coming out the back.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't. I walked around back to see if it was, and it was just, it was deflecting on the inside somewhere. But anyway, just something to think about, because that's something that, you know, we flow a ton of water, and those, I mean, those, granted, that's 500 gallons per minute, but if you're flowing the combination, that's 1,200 on our aerial. So anyway.
Yeah, the structure members actually looked pretty good inside, like the investigation the next day. I mean, it was more like kept on the outside. I mean, they had like that Latin plaster was still intact, and it kept it out of the walls pretty well.
But now put this on a 2-story lightweight that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, it's great it's in this thing, and that's why we were able to send it back in. But just keep that in the back of your brain when you're flowing water like that into these, especially the newer homes.
Because obviously.
Well, you're not gonna have,
Is it a-
you're not gonna have
Yeah.
shiplap and lap and plaster.
You would
Yeah,
have pulled
sheetrock.
the sheetrock and.
Yeah, but easy peasy.
I was just talking if we stuck the tip in there, loaded it with a bunch of water. I mean, you don't want to send people up there.
Yeah, then it would probably be a exterior.
It would have been, yeah, it probably would be more developed of a fire to be doing that than that. We did that just because of the axe. They were having such a hard time getting a saw up because it was so tall that we just tried that to see. If we
Yeah, and there was only, I mean, there's probably this much space
Yeah.
in there between that whole.
really weird.
And it was dark enough, and there was a little bit of residual smoke in there where it was hard to see what you're cutting to, and like years and years of just remodeling. I think people kept getting hung up on power lines,
Wires and stuff.
just got in the wrong way and or against the rafters instead of with them. Because after we went in, because we had a rekindle on this on the Charlie side, we could see everything. We just made access easily. It's fake, so.
Yeah, where it burnt through the roof vents about half an hour, 20 minutes or so after they left. they started smoking and they had to have them come back.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they came back and went in and found a different one.
Yeah.
And spent a bunch of time in there and came out, I'm like, Jay, it's still smoking. He's like, oh, well, we found one. I'm like, well, we got another one, I guess.
So then I think what it was is you had all the, roof supports, right? That just go along the rafters, then you have a break and it just goes along the rafters. It was between that and the new plywood they put over the top. It was burning in between there, so we had to get up there with the booster and then just get in those little crevices to get it out, but it's.
It had the, like 1x4, 1x6 on top of the rafters, and then it had, tar paper, and then the new roof was on top of that, so it was burning between that. And it was just the tips, very tips of that, where it burnt through the roof, and it just was hot enough that it was just trapped in there, so. It was just smoking, it never got any flames or anything, I just happened to look out there and check it, and it was smoking.
We started making it a 24-hour shift.
Yeah,
Any other issues that we ran into on that?
There was a small one with the chainsaw on the inside. Hayden had a chainsaw blow apart on him. Like the whole bar and everything just went flying off.
yeah, the bar nuts came off of it.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if that was a chainsaw that had previously been used and then been put back together and taken in, or was it just one we pulled off the
That one
engine?
came off engine 34, correct?
I don't know.
I'm not sure where the chainsaw came from. I'm
No, that
just
was, yeah, that
curious.
was on the 34, because McKinney.
Because I talked with Mackenzie about it, and she said, yeah, I checked it in the morning, everything seemed good, so.
I'm just curious where it came from.
Yeah.
Back on it.
It's just like they rattled off or something.
Well, that was also documentary. What didn't you guys do? Chainsaw races or something?
But that was at
Different
30.
chainsaw.
Yeah, it was at 31.
Different chainsaw.
Different chainsaw.
But then 13 went to go in and they went to start their saw and the handle broke off the pull cord, so. It was a chainsaw nightmare. So,
It was definitely a chainsaw day. We went through, we used 3 or 4 different ones on that fire.
It didn't seem like, though there was a little bit too many people on that second floor working. I think at one point we had like 12 people up there.
Yeah.
well, and that falls on me, but I had asked Albany when they went up, I said, could you use more people? And they said, yes. And so that's why I sent another crew up. And if that happened, just let command know that there's too many people, because I don't know, I wasn't in there, and when I talked to them, they said, yeah, we use more people, so I sent a whole other crew up and ended up being too much, so.
I don't think it was wrong, but I think it was because of how that second floor
Sure.
was put together, because you had that hallway. that I'm talking
It was
about.
narrow, yeah.
It was narrow,
Yeah.
and then the railing burnt off
Yeah.
of it, so I was constantly up there, I'm like, Robbie, get away from the edge.
Yeah.
It's like, don't fall, but I mean, we're all working in our own separate areas, it's just tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, those stairs were steep
Mhm.
about that.
Yeah, I just got fed up with walking down and I just slid down, if I kids do.
I called for power fairly quick.
Yeah, I saw that on here.
It took them a little while to get there, but,
Yeah, right off the bat, 23.
where I spotted was just right off of the drop. And I was standing there talking to Glover and the lines went, like, we gotta get power here. So I ended up
Good reminder.
moving another 15 feet with the BC rig because I didn't want to drop it on the tailgate,
Yeah,
so.
that panel, as we were going in.
Yeah. If we had if you guys hadn't knocked that down when you did it, we would have had a lifeline down because it's just enough to
Mhm.
keep it from burning through.
Yeah, and people were talking about that and we were all aware of it honestly too, that service drop.
I did not call for gas. You had shut it off, but I did not call for gas. And
Yeah, the meter was fine.
yeah,
One other little hang up, so at the beginning, as we were transitioning and going interior, when I teamed up with Crumley, because our crews got mixed up a little bit. So that's when I talked to Brad, I'm like, okay, who are you assigned to, who do you got? So made sure that you're with my crew initially, and then I was with Dan, and then that's when I talked to you about it, okay, here's who we have, but it didn't slow us down, what were you gonna do?
Did you get tags from everybody?
I did. And I didn't know until today that your crew, he got mixed up with your crew. And I didn't know until, I just told him to go up with you guys. I didn't know that you got split off of your crew initially. So until you came back, so. But yeah, I got tags.
You knew they were with me and.
Yeah.
So.
And then we ended up just getting into a By then, like I said, they were 3, 4 bottles in by the time second alarm got there. So we had enough staged. We took everybody but Sweet Home. Sweet Home just kept standing by, but then we just went into a rotation. It's like 2 crews go in, 2 crews go out, just kind of cycled people through as we needed to. And I tried to get these guys as much rest as I could, so I started using Silent, Tangent, and Albany as much as I could. And I sent 13 home just so they could get a rig home. After they did, I think two rounds in there, so.
Did one other thing too that caused a little bit of a issue. So we had pumper tender show up. And they parked, I think it was the pumper tender, and they parked like, wait,
Yes.
where is it? And they parked like
Yeah.
right here.
I think that was rescue.
No, the rescue
Rescue was
was
down here.
down
Oh,
on
okay.
Vine Street.
Yeah.
But they parked there and we couldn't get the ladders up our engine. So we kind of had to like,
I think that was the rescue was up here, because we tried putting the
or
mast up.
Mhm.
wait, it got repositioned.
Oh,
So somebody repositioned it right there and we're like, can't access our ladders. And, then they ended up like moving down Vine Street, I think.
Yeah, they went to the
Yeah.
left on Vine, they backed up. That was the other thing that we missed too, was ladders to the second floor.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for those and they should have, so. Somebody did it, I'm not sure who did it, but somebody took it upon themselves to do it.
It came off of our.
I assigned pumper tender 31 RIT. Yeah, and then there's one on the Delta side too. I assigned them RIT and I don't know if they did it, or if somebody else did. So,
who threw those? Did you know who threw those?
I started doing that and I got what Crumley and somebody else helped with letters.
Yeah, on the My 360 initially too, I made it around back and there's this whole section that's built back here. This whole
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
And, that's where I was curious, because I thought, well, maybe when you did your 360, maybe you kick that door in real quick just to yell for folks. And, yeah, because the lock was blown off of that. And then on the inside of that, the door going between that makeshift addition and, the actual interior of the house, that was also kicked in, the jam was split. And so, I don't know, did you ever determine?
So on the investigation side of things, so the door on the garage, the initial door was secured Friday after the contractor left. The door going from the garage into the house, he did that when he was jacking up the structure. So the contractor, so there's a couple of different things. There was a roofing contractor that went in, put in a new roof, and then this other contractor is doing, all the underground floor work to bring the floor back up level. When he was leveling that back corner, he brought that floor up about 6 inches. And he couldn't get that door open. And so he ended up forcing that door, just so that he could get in and work and do his thing. So that second door was done by the contractor, but the initial door was done by somebody.
You can tell it was like repaired or an attempt to repair it.
Yeah, he said he's gonna replace it and on that, but, the interesting part with that is that the owner of this moved out of it about 8 months ago, moved across town with a buddy of his with the intent of fixing it up and selling it. Their push was to get it on the market, end of January, had a realtor involved. The realtor was able to work some scenarios with these contractors to where the contractors did the work, but they were willing to get paid out of escrow. So this homeowner has $30,000 in the roof that hasn't been paid for, that is supposed to be paid for when the home sold. And he's got all this work that this other guy's doing underneath. They weren't doing any electrical, they weren't doing any plumbing, it was all foundation work and roof work. But the other piece of that is that there was a rototiller, a couple of lawnmowers, and a bunch of the contractor's tools that were missing since Friday at mid-afternoon when he left to go to Washington for Christmas, because that was, or New Year's or whatever it was. So when I talked to the contractor, he was actually in Washington. But it sounds like there was a burglary. And everything that we found as far as the investigation side, there's kind of 2 front living rooms, one in the Alpha Bravo corner, one in the Alpha Delta corner. The Alpha Bravo corner room is the area of origin. There actually was a couch and a chair in there, reduced to just springs. I mean, it literally took everything. Usually we find some kind of framework. I think we found two or three boards like a couch framework. So it got really hot in there. And with all that shiplap, it had some really cool patterns in there. But we weren't able to actually put together a ignition source. My guess is the ignition source walked out the door with whoever was in there, but I can't prove that. But that house gave us a lot of really interesting patterns. It was easy to rule out everything about that front room, just based on the patterns that got off that shiplap. So, pretty cool.
Anything else anybody's got? Yeah, great job. You did this exactly how it should be. When you have a well-developed fire, you have to hit it with a large stream, right? To compartmentalize it. The moment you have it compartmentalized, which means pushed back into the structure, now you can pull smaller lines and go in and actually get it, right? So just think, anytime you show up, we have one, the big 3-story apartments and you've got fire showing on the stairwells. You got to push it back into the apartments and then go and pull smaller lines once it needs to be, once you get it compartmentalized. And so it's handled really well. I mean, and all of those things, it's little things that we can work on, but it was done really well. So I don't have much more other than that.
Did you guys have much fire on the first floor when you went back in? Cause it
Back in,
looked,
no.
it looked like to me it knocked most of it out.
Well, the work they did on the Charlie side, because it was in that kitchen
Oh, okay.
that was back there, and that's why they were trying to shoot through the window. Well, it was underneath cabinets and kind of around a corner, and so you got through that slider. Yeah, they hit it and then they cleared up a little bit and we could make it up, so.
Nothing else? That's it.